Good morning. Welcome everyone to the first 2026 CDBG Connect webinar. My name is Angie Taylor. I'm one of the members of your CDBG team here. We are gathered today to talk about a new resource we have created that will help everyone from a brand new person new to the Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG, all the way through seasoned veterans. So we're really excited to have you here today, and we're just going to do a couple pieces of housekeeping to get started. The first one is that this session is being recorded, and so it will be posted shortly after our session concludes this morning. You'll be able to find it on the CDBG main page, and if you don't know where that is, don't worry, we'll be sharing that with you as we go throughout the day. So a couple pieces to get us started. Again, my name is Angie Taylor, and I just happen to be facilitating this because I helped create the guide. Other folks that you'll see on the call are Chelsea Eggenberger, who works with the Public Works part of our program. I work with the planning part. We also have Gina Dews. She works with the downtown revitalization part. And then you'll see Nicole Bartles. She does tourism development, kind of everything else. She leads our team. So thank you for joining us today. We anticipate that you will have questions, so we will be able to address those at the conclusion of our event here. So make sure that as you go through the day, you feel free at any time to submit a question. If you look along your team's toolbar, and I know this is a little bit different format than we've used previously, we went from WebEx here into Teams, and so it's just maybe a little bit different environment for some of you. Look for the Q&A button, and that will allow you to submit a question at any time. If we're able, we'll try to possibly answer it through the flow of things, and if not, we'll be sure to respond to you by the end. So why are we here today? Well, we know that the CDBG program is fairly complex, and we are doing everything in our power to help our external stakeholders kind of really wrap their hands around this program so that you can facilitate success in using the resources provided through this federal program that is administered through HUD, but then through our state folks, we help disperse those federal dollars. How do we figure out even how to do that? So we're going to look at a very distilled glimpse of how that can be undertaken today. So this is webinar number 1. The next webinar we'll tell you about at the end what topic is coming your way. So again, we'll start with this presentation. We'll do questions and answers at the end. And again, the recording will be shared afterward. All right, so I mentioned to you earlier that the CDBG team has a main page that is on the Department of Economic Development's website. So I'm just going to really, some of you are seasoned veterans, you may already know this, but if you're newer to the program and in looking through our list of attendees, we have quite a few names that I don't recognize, so welcome to all of you. When you go to DED's website and you're trying to find your way to the CDBG team, you can do that from the home page, you would click on programs. Then there will be another box that says community. And then there will be a box that says Community Development Block Grant. So in every case, this little line up here is called a breadcrumb. This tells you how to navigate to any screen that we show either currently or throughout the rest of this presentation. It helps you kind of navigate. How do I drive there? Well, that's the path for you. All right, so this is what we call the CDBG main page. And if you've never been here before, I just want to point out to you that the easiest way to use, I think, this website, and I was so grateful when somebody pointed it out to me because there was so much information I was not connecting the dots. So in case this helps anyone, when you land on this page, there is some basic information here. And by the end of today, by the way, within the next couple hours, we will post the companion guide right below here on the main page. So it's easy for you to access and download your own copy afterward. Okay, so you can start on the main page, but work your way across left to right. This is almost like a chronology of our program. So at the very beginning, you would be looking for information about how to apply for it, of course. These are the guidelines for applying. Then we have what's called the admin manual. And if you're new to the CDBG program, you might not know that we have a program, an educational program specific so that people can become what's called a certified administrator. Sometimes we call it a CA because we like alphabet soup acronyms here. So CAs go through this 3-day training. It's always held here in the Lincoln office, and then they become certified to help administer these grants. And they use this admin manual as kind of their gospel word where they go to dig into all this information. Then we have a resource library. These are all the ancillary documents on tab of the manual that you will use to help work through the lifetime of the event. We'll talk about those more later. And then reports here, that is actually DED's reporting about the success of this and other programs that we help administer. So not just CDBG reports that you would file with us to report on the process of your grant at all. These are actually outward facing reports for other people to know what we're doing. And then we'll talk about this community development, which is the umbrella underneath which we fall. Here at DED, we fall under the community development team. So that's just kind of an overview of how this website works. And I think one of the things that you will appreciate when you see this companion guide is that it helps you find where the tools are sourced from, because there is a lot of information. And so here is what we will explain to you. This is the new companion guide's first page. And at first glance, you'll be like, oh, I totally get this. This is kind of like a Candyland board in reverse. You're going to start in the top left corner and proceed all the way to the right and down. Okay, there's nothing earth-shattering about this, except it takes this huge, ginormous program and divides it up both chronologically for you. So time starts here and progresses all the way across. So it's kind of a map or a bunch of signposts on the side of the road to help you get started. And then the other two pages that are behind this that you can't see right now are actually descriptors with clickable hyperlinks that take you straight to the content that will serve you in that piece. So who can apply? Well, we have a section on that, and we're going to show that to you today. So our job is going to take each one of these steps, and we're going to navigate through them and show you the kinds of resources that you'll expect to see. Now, this is such a big program that not everything is included, but these you can think of kind of as your starting lineup. These are the key parts that you want to have on hand when you get started. And if you're a person like me that likes to check to-dos off of lists, and I have even been known to like do a task and then write it on my list just so I can cross it off. Okay. This might be a great resource for you because as you do step 1 and finish it, cross it off and then go on to the next one. You'll notice we have marked optional steps so that they're specific and different. We'll explain why those are optional here shortly. But we're going to go through these resources and help you learn kind of from the beginning and the get-go through to the sunset, from sunrise to sunset. What does this program really entail? All right, so who can apply? Well, it comes down to everything in the state of Nebraska except the 4 entitlement communities can be potentially funded through our program. Okay, so it lists the 4 entitlement communities. Again, this is on one of the other pages that prints out when you access the companion guide. And then it even provides you a hyperlink to the slides of what we call the overview of our program, and it gets updated every so often. This is what you will access. When you click that slide hyperlink, it would take you here to this reference. You can go through, you can understand how our allocations from Congress work and how we work with HUD. This is a great place to start. So if you're new to the program, check that box off by starting here. And you will notice that we are pretty great about putting published on or last updated dates on things. That's really important. So if you're viewing this recording 3 months from now, this could potentially all have changed with dates because our program continually evolves as federal regulations and state regulations are updated. Okay, so this is also a way to help keep you on top of ever-changing content. So one other quick word here, you'll notice on this slide that the image is tilted just a little bit wonky. That's just my way of telling you that you are viewing something that the companion guide points to. Okay, so that you're not confusing what the companion guide says with what the resources actually look like. So here we have a standalone slide deck. Great. Well, it starts to get, I think, a little more complicated because we have information and tasks and to-dos in several different areas. And so our job is to help you be successful to know, okay, what is next and where do I find it? And this companion guide, I think, will help you with that. So let's take a look. So we did already who can apply. So now the next step would be to review the application guidelines and begin the application process. So if you're not in one of those for entitlement communities and you qualify for the program, what do you have to know in order to be able to apply? Well, annually, every year, those application guidelines come out, and we tell you specifically at the beginning of the guidelines are all the things you have to know in general about our program, and then we break it down even more to show you content specific to each one of our different opportunities within. So we have the application guidelines. It's a downloadable document. And it tells you exactly, okay, what do I have to do to, to move forward with this? So there's an application guidelines resource. There's also annually a webinar that we present. You'll be invited to it live if you've signed up for DED's updates. You're welcome to attend live. It's also recorded and the recording is shared later. So you can go back and reference it. That's important because our guidelines change potentially every year. Then there's a CDBG application page where you go to start the process. I'm going to show you these things. But the point is that there's a PDF, a recording, a web page with a clickable link, and then the actual grant management system we'll take a look at here in a minute where you go online to do the application. Okay, so this is us pointing you in all the right directions. And afterwards, again, you could click this link to get to the CDBG main page, and then that all critical, all important administrator manual that has all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed and a ton of references in it. All right, so here is the main page. We looked at this before, but now we're going to focus in on this applications section and this guidelines section. So if you were to click guidelines, sorry, also here's the manual. That was another one of the links provided. You'll notice the manual, by the way, is broken up into subsections so that you could download just chapter 1 if you want, if you're looking for information about a specific topic, maybe environmental review, that's always chapter 6. Okay, or you can download the whole thing. Now, I love downloading the whole thing, which again is updated annually, at least annually, sometimes more often. So pay attention to this date over here when it's been uploaded. Okay, that manual is hundreds of pages long, but it's terrific as a resource because you can use Control F to find and search by keyword, and that takes you straight to the answer. So if you use the compiled version, you know you're looking through all content that could possibly contain the keyword and the information you seek. So that's the admin manual available here under this hyperlink at the top. All right, so application guidelines. Again, if you clicked application at the top, there is a section, farther down the page that contains both the guidelines document, that PDF, as well as the annual webinar. And this will be updated again, probably around June. We hope will be when we know what our congressional allocation will be. And then we'll be able to craft our guidelines and do a few other tasks that are coming. Nicole will be telling you about those at the end of the session today. But these get updated every year, so make sure you're working off of the most current information. And then when you open the application guidelines, one of the very first pages toward the front of it I think, is one of the most helpful resources that we produce. And this is at a snapshot, this opportunity chart. So again, it's in the front of that application guidelines PDF. And I print this copy out and I keep it at my desk because I use it all the time. It says, for each of these opportunities, what do I have to do in order to qualify for them? And even if you don't know what right now what a national objective is, don't worry. Okay, that's beyond the scope of today's session. But for certified administrators especially, this page tells you how could I qualify this project and what are the priority activities that I have to make sure that are part of any project that's done in downtown revitalization. Oh my goodness, they must involve commercial rehab and their match must be 25% of project costs, and it can go from between 250,000 minimum up to 400,000 maximum. And then the general admin, which is the part that we allow to help service the grant or administer the grant, okay, that can be a maximum of $25,000 or 10% of the project costs. And then construction management is included. That is for if you have Davis-Bacon labor standards, what amount would be allowed for that. Okay, so just to point out, these little numbers at the top are really important. So, for example, number 4 in the footer would tell you that when you calculate match, general admin and construction management aren't included in calculating that match. And that's a really common error we see. So make sure you read this and use it often. And I'm not going to go into more detail. We do that more in the application guidelines webinar, but do make sure you check out that helpful reference. All right, so when you get ready to apply, you come to the CDBG page, there's an applications page, and then each one of our opportunities has a hyperlink that says apply now. So when the window opens, for us usually July 1st, and then for a majority of our programs, they stay open until September 15th, although that could change. Okay, this is all subject to other influences factoring this, but those apply now buttons will become active when the grant window opens, application window opens, and then they disappear when it closes. Okay, so usually July 1st to September 15th, although these two programs actually you could apply year round. So that's a great example. Then when you click this, it takes you into what we call UNA. It was formerly called Amplifund, so you'll hear people kind of call it a bunch of different things. UNA is in this top left corner for the name. More broadly, it's a GMS, which stands for Grant Management System. This is DED's online cloud-based home where we manage all of the grants. So if you click that Apply Now button on the previous page, it takes you here. And of course, you're going to have to log in. And there's some other steps that go with it, which is shown on that companion guide we'll talk about in a minute. You go in and you apply, okay? And then if awarded, you would have not only an application record, but then also an award record where the grant would be managed from and reported on. Okay, so it just kind of, I think, helps you understand what this application does for you. So remember I said those dotted line ones are optional. Well, in this case, it may be necessary to delegate system access. Why does that happen? Well, as this program, we administer the awards to municipalities, including villages, cities, and counties. That's who the awards go to. But often it's really common to have somebody outside the city assisting with the application process. So if you've heard of an economic development district, for example, maybe your community works with, I don't know, Southeast Nebraska Economic Development District, SEND. Okay, maybe you have a representative there that's going to fill out the application on your behalf. You would delegate them access from your community's application portal to them so that they can get in and see that application and apply on your behalf. So there are instructions here for how to add users to your portal. And then if you are that outside person, maybe you're the send person, you're like, how do I even get access? Well, there's a user guide for you to figure out how to log in and then how to navigate to one external organization like the community A that you're going to help apply, but maybe you're also helping communities B and C and D apply. Well, this tells you how to switch between applying for those different communities. Okay, so I just want to point out something that I thought was kind of confusing coming into this, and that is that in that grant management system, there are actually two different portals. So if you kind of think about that in your way, in your head, that's why I put it in orange so it really stands out for you. You're going to delegate access in this step B to the application portal. That gives them access to fill in all of the application and exhibits and uploads and everything required there. And then if you get awarded, guess what? There's an award portal, and they would have to be redelegated access in that portal as well. Okay, so just keep in mind there are two different portals, and I think that's helpful. So again, all these links take you to different places. I said that all of our content lives kind of in lots of different nooks and crannies. So here is another one of them. This is called the DED Grants Help Center. Okay, this is external facing support for all of you who are logging into UNA to get help. And so if you want to know how do I add users, well, there's, excuse me, a portal, web page for that, and then it tells you, well, what are you trying to add them to, the applicant portal or the recipient or award portal? Okay, so keep in mind that this is just another series of web pages just with help support on them, and it's all contained within the DED Grants Help Center. That's not CDBG specific, that's actually specific to the application. Okay. All right, so next we have step C, complete the application exhibit and then submit the app online. Well, what the heck is an application exhibit? Again, we have lots of data in lots of different places. When you log into that grant management system, there's going to be a long form where you put in first name, last name, name of the community, address, all that. You're used to those. And there's a whole bunch more stuff we have to get from your community. And so those are called application exhibits. You can think of them like the scaffolding that gets built to support your case for why it is that you think that your community would do well to be awarded by this grant. What difference does it make to you specifically? Don't give us some answer for some other community or some generic answer that you think we want to hear. We want to know in the most sincere terms, how would this transform? What would it do for the people in your community? What difference would it make? That's what exhibits allow you to do. And those are all different documents. We're going to show you those here in a moment. They are available by going to that resource library link. Oh, excuse me. Application exhibits are actually over here under guidelines. I'm not sure why I had it go to resource library, other than to say there are lots of documents placed different places. And right here, this LMI summary data, this is really critical during the application period, because this is one of the ways, if you have a low to moderate income US Census data about your community, this is one major way you could qualify for CDBG funding. There are other ways as well, but this is a biggie. Okay, so this shows you, how do I even know if my community is LMI? Okay, this takes you to a page that shows you step by step how to do it, and then a link to that online guide through the federal government to figure out how to pull that data. Okay, that's what LMI summary data is really important for. Here's what that page looks like. Okay, it tells you step by step. There are kind of a few different ways to pull that data, and then it tells you why you would use one way over another here in italics. And then this is the hyperlink that takes you to that federal government website. Sometimes you're looking for income limits. This is all kept together kind of in one nice little package. And overall, we call it LMI SD for summary data. All right, circling back to the exhibits. Well, remember how I said that application guidelines PDF that you download at the beginning to see all the specifics? The first Many pages are about the whole program, and then we break it down by opportunity type. So for downtown revitalization, what is the purpose of that program, and so forth. And then you'll notice purpose and so forth repeated under each of these so that you can, at a pretty quick glance, figure out what is the difference between DTR, downtown revitalization, and planning. How do I know which kind to apply for? Okay, this application exhibits document answers that for you, and then it has the page numbers to help you jump there quickly. Also of interest, it specifically tells you exactly which of those scaffolding template support exhibits have to be completed for that opportunity type. So there's an applications exhibit list for DTR, ED, and planning. Okay, so make sure you pay attention to that because, again, it could potentially change from year to year. This is what that page looks like. It lists out kind of the fundamentals about the program as far as the financials go. How much could you apply for, minimum and maximum, and what kind of a match is required from the community, meaning the state's going to give us so much of this federal dollars, but the community has to match that. How much do they have to match? Well, it tells you how to calculate that right here, and that it excludes general administration and construction management. Then this list of exhibits all down the side here is color coded. So you would do AB and then C1 or C2 or D. Actually, all of these four, you get do all, not or, and, okay? And then in green here, you'll do, or green, orange. You'll do one of the orange or one of the green, one of the purple, and then all the ones below that. So that's why they're kind of color coded, just to help you understand which ones we're expecting to see from you. And then those exhibits are based on templates. So we have out on that application guidelines page a whole list of all the templates that you download. And then there are instructions per template. Sometimes they have to be printed on community letterhead. They always need to be signed in blue ink. Okay, the instructions are on every single one of these, and this is part of your application process. These will be uploaded into that grant management system as part of your application. All right, going on, then when those applications get submitted, they get sent to us. Once you click submit, we'll see them and we go through and we have to make sure that your application meets a baseline threshold to qualify. Do you have the right LMI data? Did you submit all your exhibits? Are they correct? So we'll do a review of them and then we'll pass along the documentation to scorers. Now, if you want to learn more about that, there's actually a recording from our CDBG Connect webinars that we did last year in 2025 that is just specifically about that. And you could go back and see how we did it last year. Spoiler alert, you may have noticed an email came out right before we came here today to start this that we are thinking about changing the scoring process, and there is a focus group where you are invited to attend. So just remember, it can change from year to year what those criteria are, what it looks like, and then how we would score it. But the essence of the task remains unchanged, even if the details within are different from year to year. So we determine who the selects or the awardees are, and then who the non-selects are. And we then move it on to either when the decision is made is yes, and we'll make an award record for you, or we're sorry, your grant either didn't qualify or for some reason we aren't able to award you. So then you would be a non-select in that event. All right. If you get selected, you get what's called a notice of approval letter, or NOA. That says, congratulations, we've approved you either for the full amount or maybe less, can depend on the project, or we send out a non-select letter, okay? That doesn't happen in the GMS. Again, that's a letter outside the system. And just to point out, it's really important to understand that only contracts and grant funds that are related to grant administration costs can be incurred at this time. This is not your carte blanche to go start spending money. This is now we're going to have a grant administrator come in to help us get the rest of our ducks in a line so that we can achieve what's called release of funds, and we'll get there in just a moment. So after the notice of approval, then we will have you complete what's called the assurances, the FFATA form, and then also the CDBG agreement. Some people say contract, it's actually an agreement. So this is the legal document between DED, the Department of Economic Development, and the subrecipient, the municipality that was awarded, and they fill in some other documents. So here's a hyperlink to an example FFATA form. What do we ask there? Okay, you could go see. It explains the process and who signs and how. And then again, it reiterates that only costs related to grant administration can be incurred. You cannot just go start your project all excited. Okay, so then we create a grant award record in the system, and after the agreement is signed by everybody, that's when you would be able to see that grant award now in your recipient or award portal. Now it's not just an application anymore. After that executed agreement happens, you'll see it in your award portal. Okay. So this is just an example of what that FFATA looks like and the kind of information. I think that's helpful to kind of just know, where do I go to see these things? Okay, what are they going to be asking me for if you want to study ahead for your test? So once the award record is turned on in that grant management system, there is some setup that has to be done. That's what this step describes how to do. How do you get the right people affiliated with that record so that everybody is set to move forward with what happens next? Okay, so it says what to do when you receive a grant. That's in that DED Grants Help Center. And then again, you may need to delegate access, somebody else either that's going to help you administer the grant. Again, maybe that's somebody from a development district. The example I used earlier happened to be SEND. Okay, or maybe it's other people in your community. Maybe you're going to have a city administrator that's going to log in and help, take a look at the grant and help manage it. Okay, you might have some additional work to do as part of that. And again, there is a link to that user guide to help point you in the right direction. Okay, I will point out that there are some important guidelines that you must keep in mind. And that the first one is that you must use a certified administrator to administer this grant. That means this person has gone through special training here at DED to help be successful. It's a really complicated program, especially if you're doing construction and you have labor hours. This is not average run-of-the-mill work. This is for kind of people that are experts in their field. So what does that mean and how do you get that way? Well, that there are different different user guides to help you understand what that program looks like, what the expectations are of the person in that role, and then it points you directly to the part of the manual that tells you all about it. So there's an appendix section in the manual, and these are the topics that it walks you through step by step. Should I become a certified grant administrator? What does that take? What does it look like? How often do I have to recertify? It's all in one place. Okay. So next is to complete special conditions, environmental review, and the ACH W-9 form. To be honest, this one box could be like, in some cases, like 50 of its own miniature boxes all linked together because there's a lot of stuff that happens as part of this. Okay, but again, this is the distilled down 30,000-foot view of what do I have to do next. And all of these hyperlinks are here to point you in the right direction. So what are special conditions? Well, those are the things that are not the scaffolding used to build your application. They're not application exhibits. These are special things in the agreement. It tells you, you need to give us this additional information now so that we make sure that all of the federal guidelines are met about procurement, for example, or excessive force. There's a whole list of them. Okay, those special conditions have to be met along with your environmental review process before you can get any funds. And you also have to give us an ACH and W-9 form so that we know where to send the money to. someday when you're qualified. So those special conditions happen. There is special sections, both about environmental review and special conditions, and then a user guide to show you how to set up that ACH and W-9 form. And just to kind of give you some idea, in that resource library, okay, there is a subsection titled Special Conditions. Okay, so in that resource library page, it's a huge, long page, by the way, and it goes chronologically. At the top are the things that you'll use early in the program. And if you scroll down, then performance is kind of working on the grant and managing it over time. Reporting is when things are due and so forth on down, except for environmental review and LMISD that are at the bottom. Those happen earlier in the project. So let me give you an idea. So for special conditions, again, those are other documents usually that you provide to us. This is where you can download the template from here. You'll notice there are 5 listed. Okay, so some of the special conditions are a document that you complete. But again, if you're new to the program, you might be surprised to know that the special conditions, they get uploaded to the record here on what's called the custom tab. So now you're looking at that grant award in UNA, the GMS, okay? And you would have to know where to put them. So you come in here and we're working with special conditions. So a great tip is put a keyword here and narrow this huge long list because there's a bunch of options here, but we're focusing just on the special conditions that DED requires us to provide to, show all these other topics have been addressed and that we can be successful in our grant. Okay, so you'll click on each one of these, and some of them you have uploads to do. Some of them, like this subrecipient information form, this is just a page that you go to. And for me, when I first came here, to be honest, I thought it was a little confusing because I didn't immediately know what I needed to do. Don't panic. Remember, we have that DED Grants Help Center, so there are links that can support you there. But a great tip for you is that if you come to a screen, you're like, oh my gosh, they're asking me for subrecipient information. What do I do next? There are no records found. Up here at the top, this little teeny tiny plus sign is where you click plus, and then it brings up a web page where you're going to type in all your information. Okay, so some of the some of the special conditions are going to be PDFs that you upload. Others of them, you're going to have to add the form and then type in a bunch of information online in that grant management system itself. All right, so this is what the subrecipient information page looks like. It's just a bunch of fields. You're going to put a bunch of data in. Later, there will be an upload for a letter that you have to complete and provide us. And I always just like to point out that for these special conditions, you have the option to save as draft and come back later and finish the work. But until you click submit, we cannot see it on our end. Okay, submit means kind of like if you've driven through a bank teller and you have those little suck up money things that go over, okay, submit means you sent that little cartridge up over to us and now we'll be able to see it. And the form is frozen for you. You can't do anything with it once you submit it to us. We'll review it, and if it's great and no changes are needed, perfect, we're good to go. But if there's an error, maybe you filled in one of these fields wrong, you put the wrong name in or misspelled it, uploaded the wrong document, whatever it is. Okay, we would do what's called reopen for editing, and you could go in and fix it and then proceed with the rest of the application. Which brings us to environmental review. This is one of those that when I say environmental review, if you've ever seen the old Lion King animation, you go, ooh, Mufasa, okay? Same thing, environmental review, ooh. This is a big thing for most all of the CDBG projects. What do I have to do to know whether my project has to be, if it's declared exempt, what do I need to do? And then these are the other categories, of course, of environmental review. And if you come in and you click that little plus sign next to any of those, then it shows a whole list of all the documents for that specific type. So just for CEST, so look at that. We just expanded this one bar here, that project that was CEST, that happens to be a lot of our projects, okay? All of these documents would be required, okay? So this kind of, again, is a signpost pointing you in the right direction. Once we get all those documents and they're all correct, the DED will issue what's called environmental clearance. That is a huge hurdle cleared because that puts us in a position where we could then, if all the special conditions are also done, do release of funds, ROF. And this is a big one. That's why I put a star next to the description, because at this point, now you can finally get underway with your project. All project costs now are eligible, not just the ones related to grant administration and getting those special conditions and the environmental work done. Okay. So then over the life of the grant, there will be other things that you have to submit to us. Of course, you're going to want money. So you're going to enter what are called payment requests. Some people call them drawdowns. It's all the same. It's basically an expense reimbursement. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, there are user guides, and then you'll be able to see the payment requests in your portal and submit the forms online. There's articles to help walk you through how to do that on the DED Grants Help Center, a process chart. And again, our next CDBG webinar will be about how to do that. As the life of the grant goes on, you will then be updating us with how is it going. And those are called monitoring exhibits. Again, different templates that go along with keeping us updated as to the progress of your grant. So you'll submit to us project status reports every 6 months once activity starts, and it tells you how to do that. Sometimes you'll get a notification of annual audit, and maybe you'll have to give us some information based on how many federal dollars your municipality received. And then we do what's called benchmark monitoring that helps us have kind of that really granular view to make sure your grant is being managed successfully so you don't come to the end of the project and have a bunch of red flags later. So for example, I circled here the PSR related guides. They're all posted online for your convenience. Notification of annual audit happens within the system. And then as far as monitoring goes, it can be done desktop, which is remotely, or sometimes we come to your place and do it on site. Sometimes it's a hybrid of both. This gives you kind of just an overview of what we call benchmark 1 or B1, sometimes B2, and then B3 and R1, which are the same thing. It's kind of confusing, but monitoring exhibits are not to be confused with application exhibits. So if any part of your project changes, you would have to go through what's called an amendment process. So if what we set out in the agreement isn't going to happen the way we thought it would, then we have to go through an official legal amendment process. And it tells you how to go through that. There is a special section within the manual that tells you about what are the common reasons for amendments to happen. And we even tell you for each of those different kinds, what do you have to submit to us to be successful? Okay, so the DED Grants Help Center has step-by-step instructions for how to do that. And then kind of you're coming now toward the end of your project, you will submit what's called the final payment request. That's your flag to us that your grant is almost done. Maybe you're out of money, or maybe work has finished and you just are done. Okay. That triggers then some closing activities. You'll need to submit to us final reports. Okay, so there will be a final project status report and a final financial report, and then there are instructions for how to do that. Again, the final financial report actually happens within the grant management system. You upload it there, kind of where you did the special conditions earlier. Oh, there's one for final financial report. Then we do what's called the closeout monitoring process. That is our comprehensive review of the entire project where we look to make sure, did we do the labor wage rates correctly? Did we pay the people correctly? This is a very close analysis to make sure we did what we said we were going to do and that the citizens were involved and able to have a voice. All of those kinds of things will be done toward the end of the project. And if all is successful, we will come eventually. Maybe we need to work back and forth and get everything done, but at the end, your kind of take a deep breath and celebrate is called a certificate of completion. That is a biggie. That means, wow, your monitoring is done. We've analyzed it. This is a big deal. And now no more reports are due to us. It's kind of the final finish line, if you want to think of it that way. Okay, the last thing that we want to make sure that you keep in mind, though, is that we want you to share back with us your success stories. So please, we have a website where you can work with your program representative that you'll get to know well through the life of your grant. We want to know what kind of an impact did your project make? So maybe it was a fire truck, maybe it was some hotel work for your downtown, maybe it was a museum, an opera house. We love to share our stories. So this is again what the whole guide looks like. These are your program representatives. We mentioned them at the beginning of the call. Tom Stevens is not with us today, but he's in charge of economic development. These are your key contacts for each of those different types of CDBG work. And that brings us to Q&A. So I haven't had a chance to breathe even to look at that. I'm going to go to Nicole for the follow-up slides. And I don't see any questions in Q&A. So Nicole, take it away.
All right. For some reason, I don't know if it gave me the control, but you can go ahead and move them if you want.
Sorry, try again.
I don't know if it gave me the control, but oh, there
Okay.
it goes. Okay. So just wanted to give some updates. There is the National Community Development Week, April 6th through the 10th. So I don't know if you or your community has any plans, but we would encourage maybe for you to sign a proclamation, host an event, highlight maybe a project, develop some maybe program fact sheets, issue a press release, involve program partners and beneficiaries to just help spread the word. As Angie mentioned, it's important to have success stories, but this is a dedicated week that recognizes the work that's done in community development. So please put that on your calendar to make sure that you recognize and do something during that week. The next one is we have our CDBG Investments and Impacts publication is now available and includes 2021 through 2025. You will find that on our reports page, as Angie mentioned. And then there is a CDBG Investments and Impacts link right there. And so it's a 2-pager. So if you want to go out and promote the program, or on the back, there's a really cool map of showing all of the different communities that have been awarded CDBG funds. That is where you could go for that. What's next? So the other thing I just wanted to mention is, as Angie said earlier, we are awaiting our congressional allocation to be released. Once that's released, then we will be working on our 2026 annual action plan, which will involve all of the CPD programs, so not just CDBG, but HOME, ESG, HOPWA, and the Housing Trust Funds. And so we will have a public hearing, and that will be part of that planning process to submit to HUD. So we're maybe looking at May time for a public hearing. Nothing's been set in stone because, again, we're still waiting on those allocations to be released. But just keep that on your radar. The other thing is a publication went out this morning regarding this year. We are hosting a focus group. That'll be Wednesday, April 15th. We have it scheduled from 2 to 3. If you want to join us, we will be talking about some of the proposed changes to the scoring and criteria for the application. Then we also will follow that up with an actual webinar regarding the 2026 applications, and this will be specific to CDBG, and it's typically the first week of June. The reason why we do it there is because then our program year starts July 1. So the state of Nebraska will open up our applications July 1, and the competitive cycle will close in September, and then our ongoing ones, which are economic development and tourism, will be an open cycle. So our CDBG Connect calls, we try to have them quarterly. So we're in the process of planning our next one. We haven't decided on a date yet, but we have a title, which will be how to submit a payment request. So please join us for our second Connect call of this year. Hopefully we'll get a date and information out soon so you can register. And then finally, just to put on your calendars, we have our dates of September 29th, 30, and October 1st for our CDBG certification administrative training. It'll be held here in Lincoln. So keep those dates on your calendar if you are wanting to get certified for CDBG. Following this, this recording will be uploaded to our main page. And so you'll be able to see on the main page, there's an events tab, which has that registration for that focus group. But then also on the right is recordings. Currently that list our previous CDBG Connect webinars that we've posted, and this one will be added to that section. So if any of you have your phone, if you want to go ahead and do an evaluation for this particular CDBG Connect, that would be great. We value your input, and it helps us to decide our topics for how we present these CDBG Connects. So any feedback is greatly appreciated. And then here's our program reps and our team. I'm Nicole Bartles. Angie was on there. Chelsea, if you want to give a wave. Chelsea's the Public Works rep. Gina, she's Downtown Revitalization, and then Angie, who presented already. So, and Tom is out of the office today. But if you have any questions, reach out to us, and I'll see. Do we have any other questions that came through?
No, there hasn't been anything submitted.
David Hall just had one that just popped up. Thank you, David, for your question. He asked, when will changes to LMI be announced? And
so shouldn't be any announcement. They were just announced last year for the 2020 census. So they got announced last June, I think it was, right before our application series opened. So census are done on a 5-year basis, so it'll be a while before there's actually any changes to LMI. Angie, if you want to go back to the evaluation slide, and then we'll leave it at that. Thank you. All right, well, we appreciate everyone's time, and you can go ahead and stay on if you have any other questions, or go on to enjoy your day.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. If you stay on, we'll let you turn your camera on and your microphone so you could ask your question in person if you prefer. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time for payment requests. All right, if you have a question, I have just enabled you to be able to both unmute, that would be using the microphone button along the toolbar here in Teams, and or turn your camera on. So if you do have questions and you're hanging around to ask that, you can click the camera button and the mic button so we can hear you. And I'll be watching next to your names to see if anybody unmutes, and I'll be glad to call on you. so you have a chance to have your voice heard. No one. All right. So we go ahead and wrap it up. Everybody, thank you so much for coming today. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll look forward to seeing you next quarter. Bye-bye.